Well, thank you all for coming. You are at the panel of How to Research Agents and Publishers at this year's Right Hive. My name is Sarah Hersman. I'm a sci-fi fantasy author, and I'm thrilled to introduce two professionals with broad expertise in the publishing industry that are going to help answer your questions about agents and publishers. So go ahead, Em.
Hi, my name is Mary Beth McCarthy. I am a published author under M. Dalto. I'm a fantasy writer as well, both self and traditionally. And I'm also the senior editorial director at Sword and Silk Books Publishing, which is a small independent press.
Well, hi, everybody. My name is Cristina Jurado for the Anglophones out there. I am a bilingual writer, translator, and promoter of speculative fiction. I write in English and Spanish. I'm from Spain originally, although I live in Dubai, and I am also editor of a magazine of speculative fiction called Supersonic back in Spain. And I'm also a contributor for the bilingual magazine Constelación. I've also been the very first female author to win the Best Novel Award in my country for science fiction. For those of you who don't know, it's like the equivalent of the Hugo Award. And I won last year Best Science Fiction Promoter by the European Science Fiction Society.
Great, thank you both for being here. Let's just start out with, in what situation should a writer submit to an agent versus a publisher, and which is best for which publishing goals?
I mean, I think it really is dependent on, like you said, on what the author wants to achieve. There are authors who have the dreams of being with the big four, I think they are, seeing their book on a bookshelf, getting onto the New York Times bestseller list. That's where one would want to go the agent route. But then if you just want that experience of getting published, of getting your book out there and to a more broader audience, maybe you don't want to go the agent route. Maybe you want to take things more into your own hands, which is where I believe like the self-publishing or just, the small independent press definitely would be more for you, where if you want more of that control of your story getting out there.
If I may add, I totally agree with you. And I also think it depends on how is the industry in your own country. I don't think it's exactly the same in every, not even in every continent, but in every country, in every literary tradition. I can say that in certain countries, it is very unusual for speculative fiction writers to have an agent, because agents only focus on certain type of mainstream authors, and they represent only few very well established speculative fiction writers. So I think if you're starting your career, it's probably best to start trying to contact editors in magazines or through competitions or submissions, any type of submission system, because you can first of all get in touch with the people in the industry, share your experience with other authors that may also be in the process of submitting, and they are in the same situation as you are. And you're starting to really start a network, which is absolutely paramount. I cannot stress enough how important networking is. Absolutely. But networking not in a bad, I think there's a certain idea of networking as, oh my God, to just try to meet a lot of people and try to take advantage of other people's connections. And no, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about a more collaborative networking, where you really you really try to make contact with people without trying to take advantage of them. Mm-hmm. And also I think that would connect you with other projects, and maybe some editors don't want to publish your story or your work right now because it doesn't fit on what they are thinking or they are preparing, but maybe later on it will ring a bell and say, oh, I read about this person wrote this and that and that, and I think it could be good for this. Or maybe they're talking with other editors and say, oh, I know this person. So I think it's very, very important if you start to approach, if you're starting at any case, if you start approaching editors through magazines. That's why I am a big advocate of magazines and portals and things like that, because I think it's a great way to meet people and to make yourself known.
Right, so you're not just getting too focused on that one project that you're working on and kind of being self-centered about just my career all the time. You're joining a community of people that you can then help each other.
Because I think there's a difference between wanting to write and wanting to become a writer. It's not exactly the same thing. If you want to become famous and get the glory of being known and make lots of money, that's a completely different thing. That's to write and the craft and what it takes and the amount of time you have to invest in perfecting your craft and collaborating in many, many projects. Sometimes you start collaborating and then is when opportunities arise, but it doesn't come automatically. I think people sometimes think that, oh, I'm going to submit something to an agent and and I'm going to be published in 0.5 seconds. And it's not, it's very, very, very randomly it happens.
Yeah, I always say the querying process and submission process is the easiest part of it, because there's so much beyond it. And like you said, like, yeah, the authors, some authors just who aren't familiar with the industry, like, I'm going to submit it, an author's going to love it, and I'm done. And it's not, it's just beginning. And that's why I think the research at this stage of the game is so important, because this is pretty much the future. You're setting up your path for where you want to end up, and you want to make sure you're going to be on the right one, or you're going to have to start from scratch more than you want to.
Yeah, this is exactly, I think you just make a very, very important point. The research, it's not just about sending your work to somebody that you find out on the internet. It's about really getting to know who you are contacting, in the sense of what do they publish, what they are interested. Maybe they have a specific project that you can fall into. I'm thinking about all the issues that Lightspeed did for women authors, or people of color, of people with disabilities. All those things. There are always projects that you may be part. You could be part, but you have to do, as Maribeth said, you have to do the research. And I think some people lack a little bit of patience, preparation. They're very, very anxious. They want to get out there, and it takes a little time, and you have to make the work, the homework.
So we're definitely getting on to another question that I had, which is what qualities should a writer look for in an agent, and how do you ensure that an agent would be a good fit for you? Big questions.
I mean, it's like you can, and one of the things that I think, unfortunately, we've been seeing a lot lately, if anyone's been following social media and everything, is like, you can think you have the best agent. You can think you've done all the research. You can think they're the best person in the world, but you really don't know. And I mean, you can think you know, and you can do the effort, and you can put the time in, and that's not on you. I mean, I am a full book one. I always say, and this goes for agents and publishers and everything, no agent or publisher is better than a bad agent or publisher. And sometimes it's just so hard, because you think you know and you don't. And so that's why research, like check out someone's social media presence, and it's very important these days when so much is relying on social media, and like you said, networking, interactions. If you're coming across someone who just doesn't feel right to you, in the back of your head, you have to think, this is someone you're going to have to work with and continue to work with. It doesn't matter what they can promise you and what you think they can give to you in your career, but you need to be able to connect with them as a person as well. And I think that's one of the main important things, is that you need to just make sure that it's someone you can work with.
And I also think what you said is absolutely spot on about trying to find out how's the presence online, because thank God we have now the tools to get a lot of information. This is something that we couldn't have some years ago. We couldn't access this information that we have now at the tip of our fingers. But I always said, at least this is a very personal opinion, that I can't separate an author from his work or her work. Mm-hmm. I can't. I don't know. And I have a friend who says, me neither. And I don't know with what knife can you do that because it's very difficult. And I think that extends to other jobs. If you see that a person has certain opinions online but the attitude they have towards other people, if you see they are mean to other people, whatever the ideology is, even if it's an ideology that you don't, for example, share, but if they have been treated in an inadequate way, I would not associate myself with somebody who treats other people badly, because for me that's like a red line. You have to treat, first of all, is that like the most I think obvious thing, you have to treat other people in a respectful way. And also the way they treat other people, it's an indication of how can they, not maybe now, but in the future, could treat you. So that gives you also an idea of the ways they work and they think and how they consider the whole industry. I also think that if you try to get an agent and this person from the very beginning starts to praise your work enormously and does never give you any criticism, you should distrust that, because I don't know how can you improve if you don't get honest criticism and a constructive criticism. And sometimes we are so eager to get an agent that we just want our ears to be filled with beautiful words and people praising and things. And this is wonderful. Everybody needs that. Yes. But at the end of the day, you need to have somebody who's honest about your flaws, because everybody has them. And their job is to make you improve. Is when I'm working as an editor, I always say that my job is to make my authors shine. That's my job, and requires sometimes to be maybe to tell things that are not super nice to hear, but you have to tell them. You have to be courageous enough to tell them. So I think that this is very, very important. If somebody tells you right from the beginning, you are the best thing under the sun, distrust. You should not trust them. It's my personal opinion.
Right. So we want someone who's kind and compassionate to others. We want someone who is not just going to validate us, but is going to give us constructive feedback. What are some other services an agent provides, or like hallmarks of, yes, this is the right agent, I found somebody who's worth hanging on to?
I mean, yeah, you're going to want to be someone who's also on your side, like someone who's going to be a representative for you. And I think that's a big part of it too, is that you're going to want someone who's not, like meek, quiet. I mean, you want that assertiveness. You want that person who's a go-getter, and you want that person who's going to be like, yes, I believe in this story as much as you do. Along the same lines, you say, it's not a matter of praise, like, oh, this is the best thing I've ever read, but you want some like, I know together we can make this the best it's going to be, and I'm going to go to the mat for you. I mean, that's what, at least in my opinion, what an agent should be for their authors. And it doesn't matter color, race, gender, orientation, it's got to be that across the board for everyone, because again, they're representing you just as much as you're representing them.
And they have to show a genuine interest on you. It's like, I'm sure that all of you have gone through this experience that you start dating somebody and this person never asks you any single question about you. Then the thing is not going well, because that means they are not really interested, and mostly they're interested in themselves. So if you see that you can sense that. You can sense that in the interactions. You can sense that in the way they work with you, like if they're on time, if they promise you to send you something or to work on something, and they keep their word. And I'm not saying that could be one day something can come up and they have to cancel something. But what I'm saying is like consistent how you say it, a consistent way to do things in a very relaxed and not very professional way. Then you have to start asking questions. Do I want to be one chasing my agent for basic things, or is their job to be kind of like after you? Or I'm not really sure that's maybe the best way to work. I personally think the team kind of teamwork, it's better. It says that they have a certain role to fill. For sure, you don't have to do their job, but you are kind of like you work in a tandem. You're working together to tune your work and to find the best home for your work. So I think that if there is no a connection, the way there is no genuine interest from him or her to you, it's going to be really, really hard to find that home for your work.
This may seem a basic question, but is that the agent's main job, is to find a home for your work? Or are there other aspects to that relationship going into the future? Or I guess just in order, you say you get your agent, you have this person, you feel like you have a good connection with them, and they start shopping your work around. What are some of the things you should think of? This is a little off the topic of researching agents, but in terms of evaluating that relationship and deciding if it's going well.
I guess I'm not sure that's in the job description, but I would say that they have to be able to channelize good opportunities to you, or you to good opportunities. I think that a good agent is somebody who not only finds a home for your work, but advises you on things that you can do with your career, and advises you what steps you have to take to maximize the benefits. And I'm not talking about money intentionally, because I don't think it's the only thing that matters. So sometimes you can do things just because they matter a lot to you and to your work, and sometimes it's not advisable because whatever reason. I mean, they have to be able to see a little bit further, I think, bigger picture. If they just stick to the managerial job of just finding a place to publish your work, I think it's kind of falls a little short. But I think it depends on also the style of the agent.
Yeah, and I think to follow up with that too, like you said, you want to see an agent look at the long run. Like they are a representative of your work. So, you getting to the agent and getting that done is great. But then once you go on submission, like they're your voice, and you want to make sure that they're looking out in your best interest and they're presenting your work for all the opportunities that you deserve. I can say from my experience, with the press, we do receive agent submissions, and you can tell the agents that are there with their clients' best interest in mind, how they lay out their query letters, how they let us know about them, how they, the passion in, explaining to us what they're giving to us, while at the same time, you can almost see the agents who are just looking to get a story sold. And you can tell, and it really does matter. And these authors need to understand that these agents are an extension of them, and they are representing them. And you need to make sure that when your story goes on submission, which is one of the most important parts, I think, of the process, other than, getting actually published and on a bookshelf, is that these agents have your best interest in mind. And it goes back to what we said too, is like, you want to make sure there's that communication too. You want to make sure you speak to your agent and you tell them what you want. Some authors are like, nope, I only want to go to, big 5 presses, big 4, big 5 presses, or other ones like, I'm okay with where, you want to send this, let's see what options are out there. because agents will submit to whoever they can to get a book sold. And I'm not saying it's bad, I'm not saying it's good, but there has to be that communication between an author and their agent as well, especially like we said, like they are a representative of you in a process, beyond, the work you've already done.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. That makes a lot of sense. So we talked a little bit about resources for researching agents in terms of looking at their Twitter and their social media presence to get a sense of who they are. Are there any other resources that you've encountered that you've found useful, or that other people have found useful?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest experiences, like things you can do is client experience. I think if you are looking at a particular agent, whether you're beginning the querying process or you received an offer, talk to people who are already signed with them. I think nothing is more valuable than personal experience. And that being said, if you are an author who is having someone come to you to ask about your agent or your publisher, you got to be honest, because the last thing you want to do on either side is have someone locked into a situation where someone could know that, oh, this one thing happened, but it's okay, another happened again, types of, you want to know the truth. You want to know the honesty. If someone is having a bad experience, ask, and tell, it's a matter of trust. I know there are some people out there who are nervous that word's going to get back to their agent or publisher that they, told them about a bad experience. And I get that. But I don't think that should stop anyone from asking. I know I personally am a big proponent. Like I've had authors ask us, hey, can we talk to your other signed authors? And obviously with their permission, like, yeah, please talk to them, ask them about their experience, let them tell you what they've been through, good, bad, whatever it is, and then if it does get back to us, if we do know, like we know what we can fix as well. So it does work both ways. Another thing that I've noticed myself or looked into myself, is there's a website, Writers Beware, where it's more of on an anonymous level, where writers can submit queries and not queries, apologies, their stories about experiences with agents, for good or bad, that don't want it coming back to them, and it's a very good resource just to get a feeling of what's out there and what can be avoided, should be avoided, or if there's any doubt in a mind, maybe somebody else has had those questions too.
Just a quick follow-up to that. When you say reach out to other authors that the agent has signed, as a new person coming onto the scene, a new author who's never had an agent, that might seem a little daunting, or like that that's like crossing a line to talk to those authors. At least that's the thing going in my head. Is that something you would do after you're already sort of in discussions with that agent, or are you thinking that it might be all right and socially acceptable to do that earlier in the process?
I think it's an author's own comfort level. Personally, for me, I wouldn't feel okay reaching out until I knew there was something more serious on the lines. Like if that offer was up in the air and you wanted to know more about someone who's extended an offer, I would definitely say absolutely. At that point, reach out. Beforehand, feel it out. I mean, if someone isn't comfortable talking to you, they'll tell you that. I mean, the worst thing to say is, sorry, I'm not available at the moment. I'm always a proponent of the worst thing they can tell you is no. Because I don't think anyone should ever feel bad about asking questions. That whole communication aspect of the industry that I feel so many people are afraid of. Ask questions, because if you don't ask, you don't know. And then last thing you want to do is get yourself into a situation where you're like, crap, I should have known better. What I do personally in the instance before, anything, like I do look an agent up, like we said, talk about social media, see anyone else who publicly has announced they've signed with them, see what experiences they are at least publicly displaying, and seeing what kind of a person they may be. And if I do feel comfortable enough, maybe I'll, try to start a dialogue just to see what, their own experience is. But again, I think it's up to a comfort level for each individual author. But I think the minute that an offer is on the table and in discussion, no holds barred, I would definitely go out and ask at that point for sure.
Thanks for explaining.
And also you can rely on the groups of your peers. You're not alone in this ecosystem. You have other groups of authors that you gravitate towards, and they have experiences that heard things. They have their own network. Don't hesitate to reach out to them. I personally, the first thing I do is I try to reach out to some of my more trusted friends in this industry, and try to understand their point of view and their experience, and that normally gives you a lot of points of information that you can use later on. And then, as Marybeth said, you can always check who's being signed up and ask them if you feel comfortable and you have a legitimate question. Well, everybody has legitimate questions about their future as a writer. What I'm saying is, like, normally, if you are, my experience is that if you are respectful, if they have time, they will probably answer you very honestly. There's nothing wrong with that. They will, as she said, the worst thing is to say no, I don't have time, or they don't answer, but they're not going to eat you. So
Right.
Important to remember, wisdom to take away, they will not eat you. All right, so what if your goals are sort of a smaller publishing house or closer to an independent press? Now you're the point person, you don't have an agent to help. What services should you be looking for in those smaller publishers as you're starting to research them?
Again, I think it kind of goes back to the same lines of what you would do for an agent. I mean, I can say personally, like, I'm published with small press. I work in a small press. You know, I don't want to say demand the same respect, but should have the same respect. You know, but at the same time, you should also research small presses as well. It goes back to what I said, you know, there are good ones and there are bad ones. And, you know, the last thing you want to do is get yourself involved in the term is a vanity press. You know, long story short, unless you're self-publishing, you should never have to pay someone to publish your work for you. It's very important, and this is all part of, again, you know, the research aspect of it. A small, like you said, it's going to bat for yourself without the agent in between. But a small independent publisher is still a publisher, and they still will take your books on. You still query them, you still submit to them, you know, and they still should go through the process with you, just as if you were signing with an agent. You know, but again, it's a lot of it's research. You want to see what their presence is online. You want to look at the books that they've put out. You know, if you're interested in how their covers are going to look, how their editing process is going to be, you know, small presses, I feel, are a lot more present online for that reason, because they have to present themselves in a different light. You know, you can go into a brick and mortar Barnes and Noble bookstore, you can see the books on the shelves, you know what those publishers are putting out. I feel small presses and independent publishers have to be more of a presence online to be like, this is what we have to offer. You may not know us, but you will type feeling. And so I think just as you would with an agent, with a small press and indie publisher, it's just as much, you know, what's their presence like online? What's their website like, their process? What are their books like? How many books have they put out? How many authors have they signed? I mean, everyone starts somewhere, and you want to make sure that you aren't going to be the guinea pig as well.
And also to reach out to your peers to know who's been working with them or has any experience with them. It's important to remember what Marybeth said. Even though small publishers are small, or indie publishers are small and a small operation, they're enterprises too, and they have to take you seriously, and they have to do exactly the same things as any size company. And for that, and because of recent events that I witnessed, I can't stress enough how important it is for you to, for anybody, for any author, to ask for your rights, to get information about how much you sold. This is by law. You have to get that information. Whatever is in your contract, they cannot hide it from you. If they drag their feet, they don't disclose information. You have the right to ask that information, and any retaliation that comes after you asking those questions. And because I've seen it happen, it's wrong, and you can't just simply decide to leave, and because you're entitled to have by law to have that information and to receive what you've earned. If they tell you to wait, if they give you all kinds of excuses, if they try to gaslight you, if they start to talk bad things about you because you've questioned them, then my advice is to ask them legally what's yours and leave as fast as you can, because nothing good can come when a relationship is already taunted in this way and there is distrust. I'm not sure in the US how it works, or even in the Anglo-Saxon industry works, but in my country, sometimes things are done in a kind of more relaxed way, and it's your word against his or her word. And that's not as professional as everybody would like to, but it could end up being really a nasty situation where there is misunderstandings. So that's why from the small little things that I've published and I edited myself, I always try to follow all the steps and give all the information on time, even if nobody has asking me, because it's something that nobody has to ask. You have to give it, you have to disclose it. And that's just the right thing to do. There is a right thing to do things, and there is a very lazy way to do things. Don't let anybody tell you that the lazy way to do things is good. It's not. Because in any company that would not be allowed. So if it's a small publisher or an indie publisher, it shouldn't be allowed either. And it's understandable because we're talking about maybe less copies sold or less copies printed. The operation itself is smaller, yes, but as I said, you have to conduct yourself as if you were the CEO of a big company. You have to be able to really answer to the financial and legal requirements. And being small is not, as I said before, it's not an obstacle to do that. Not sure if I explain myself.
Yeah, no, and if I can, I'm going to piggyback on that for a second, because back to the whole, contract. It's in the United States, it's all about the contracts. You need a signed contract. That's your deal is done. And I reiterate this to anybody. I mean, if you are considering an offer with a small publisher, ask for a draft of the contract and review it. If you can bring it to an attorney, which I would totally suggest, let them look it up across. No publisher should ever say no to that. You have every right to review a contract before you sign it. And I reiterate to everybody I know, who, whether it's for a small press, whether it's for a magazine publication, an adult, anything, review your contract. Have somebody else review your contract for you. Anything you can to look that contract over word by word, line from line. Make sure you completely understand what you are signing away. And if there are questions, ask. Do not just assume, oh, this will never bother me later. This will never affect me. No, you need to make sure you completely understand what you are signing away, because like you said, Cristina, it's your livelihood, your rights, your royalties. It's yours just as much as it is theirs. And so you want to make sure that you're being treated fairly. And again, there's that whole networking thing, that researching thing, what is industry standard? Look at, try your best to research it, try your best to look it up. If a publisher is a decent publisher, they're going to maintain industry standard just as much as the next person, because it is a competitive industry, and you want to make sure that you're doing right by your authors just as much as they're going to be doing right by you. So yeah, I completely agree that you have to make sure you know exactly what you're signing away.
Right, you don't have that agent who has the industry expertise to kind of give you that internal insight. So you have to be really careful. That makes a lot of sense. So if you do find a small press that you like and you sign, what are some of the things that you would expect with that relationship moving forward? Is it sort of the same as an agent, where they're potentially interested in your future work, or they're interested in your career? Is there that kind of camaraderie and relationship building in that relationship, or is it usually more of a slightly removed professional, or can it vary?
Let me ask you something. Could you, any of you, work with somebody you don't like, potentially?
For a little while.
I don't know.
I mean, I feel like a part of that would be like when you initially begin, just like you said, like if we go back to the dating, any relationship can start out great, but then anything can go sour. So, and it's a matter of, yeah, you can sign and think everything's great, but then you're locking yourself in for 1, 2, 3 years, and you have to work with people, whether you like them or not. So I think it's a matter of whether you like you said, it's a weird line, because you don't want to work with someone that you can't stand. But at the same time, there's that professional versus that personal. So it's hard. It is hard. And, one of the things I was going to say is like, you can research something to the ends of the earth. You can think you have made the best decision possible for you, and then you can still get blindsided. It has happened to me. It's happened to people I know. You think you have found the best publisher, and the next thing you know, that publisher is crumbling from the inside out, and you no longer have a contract. So you ask, can you work with someone that you don't like? Initially, if this person was a horrible person, no, I would probably find somebody else. But people change, relationships change. And so I think it's very hard. It's very hard to truly know somebody's true intentions, because everyone wants to put their best foot forward. And I really think you have to make the best decision for yourself at the time.
And also it depends on, I don't know whether if somebody's really truly horrible, they can still be good in what they do. I mean, that's kind of like, I'm not sure. It should be possible theoretically, but I find it really, really hard, because as I said, for me, the red flags or the red lines are, treating others and being professional, etc. Other thing is that coming a little bit, connecting with what you were saying, Maribeth, and what you said in the previous answer in the previous question, is that, for example, I know that many people from outside of the English-speaking circuit, when they get the opportunity to publish in English media, publisher, magazine, etc., they're so happy that they will sign anything. Because they think this is just a big opportunity. So I'm just going to sign whatever they send me. And that's what, when you said, just go through all the lines, read the contract, ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask questions. This happened to me recently. I was worried. Had one of my stories translated into English, and it's going to be published in the UK. And they sent me the contract. I reviewed the contract. I thought it was great. I signed it. Then they told me, send us the invoice. I sent the invoice. And then, because I'm so used to deduct the taxes from my invoice, that's what we do in my country. You get paid less, of course. And these kind of people, the representative from the publisher in the UK, say, no, you misunderstood. You're going to pay on top. The taxes are on top. You don't deduct them. I took the liberty to adjust them for you. That was mind-blowing, because it never ever happens to us at home. So just to tell you an example, a small example of how your mindset is sometimes. So obviously, when somebody comes and tells me, we're gonna and the people I know, at least, because I know a lot of people from Italy, from Brazil, from France, from all over the world, when they're told you're gonna be published in this company, which is from the US or from the UK or etc., they are sometimes so happy that they just don't look into the details, and they sometimes end up being blindsided by certain things, because, well, it's not maybe the best conditions. But I'm not sure whether, I don't want to say that the publishers take advantage of people because they're coming from outside of the circuit. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying it's kind of easier to you know that you're going to get a positive response and not many questions, because you're just so happy. And I think this is something that has to get adjusted a little bit, because I don't think it's it would be good for the practice, and it would reflect badly on the industry. And also it could get to the point where they try to do this with the local writers. And I don't think the local writers would like to be also blindsided or anything like that. So I think it would work better if everybody kind of raises the standards a little bit. And also as part of self-criticism, I think we the outsiders we need to also, expect more and ask more questions and get informed and ask for basic standards.
As Mary Beth said earlier, no publisher and no agent is better than a really bad fit that takes you in a bad direction for your career.
Yeah,
I'm gonna have a T-shirt with that.
And to go back to the initial question to Sarah, you sign with the you sign with the small press or whatever, and you're like, yes, my book's going to get done. But I think that's, like I said before, that's just the beginning. And, how much a publisher is there for you is also how much it varies. I know there are some small presses that are there with their publishers the whole way. They have marketing plans for them. They have, release plans. They want to be in talks with them about potential series and contracts going forward. And then there are publishers who sign one book and that's it. They're just, okay, here are some copy edits and this will be the date that your book shows up on Amazon. And then everything else is on the author. And it's hard because I know authors, unfortunately, who have been caught up in that. They thought, yes, I'm getting my debut. It's signed. I'm going to be published. But they weren't told what to expect. It's almost like, the rose-colored glasses were on and like, okay, where are my edits? Like, oh no, this is it. It's part of that research that I feel people need to try to do. Like, again, when we get to that offer stage and, yes, they're going to sign me. What's their process? That's a huge thing to know what you can expect before you sign those rights away, whatever rights they are. For Sword and Silk, we make sure that we not only have email communications with our potential authors, but we set up a Zoom call and talk to them and let them know this is what you can expect. This is our process. So I think that's a huge part of what a lot of small and indie publishers need to do if they aren't doing already is communicate. Let your authors know what your process is. Let your authors know what they can expect. Be truthful with them. Yes, everyone wants to sign both sides of it, but you don't want to, as an author and as a publisher, you don't want to lock someone in who's going to be miserable. You want someone there who's going to be the best representative for you as much as you are for them. So there's no reason not to be honest. There's no reason not to be upfront. And if you're hesitating to tell them that truth, maybe there is something wrong with your process that you as a publisher need to reevaluate.
Right, because that author is not going to be silent about the way that you are treating them as a press. Right.
No, and I think, and it's just as much as a press needs to have a presence, authors have a presence representing that press as well. That's something that everyone needs to take into consideration, that if something is wrong, someone's going to find out.
There are basic things that a publisher has to provide to you, like be able to proofread in an efficient way your work, or to, if they don't do it in-house, to have somebody to do it. That's kind of like the minimum standard, I think, in my opinion. Then all the marketing and the promotion, it really varies depending on also the objective of the publishers. There are some that are super small and they go in a different direction. There are others that have other resources, and sometimes there's more collaborative efforts. I've seen, for example, something very interesting, like a book in Spanish will come out in a small press in Spain, and then the same book will come out in a press in Argentina, for example, because it's another Spanish-speaking market. So it's kind of a simultaneous thing, but it's a collaboration because both are coming along, and they collaborate to help each other to spread the word about this book. And I've seen it more and more lately, because I think that we understand that because of the situation with the pandemic, it's important, it's paramount to help small publishers any way we can. And maybe competition is not as good as collaboration. Collaboration, it's something that at the end brings, I think, more to the table, I think. So I would like to talk about expectations. The expectations that people have, which is something that when we started the conversation, we were talking about what you're looking forward if you want to write or be a writer, or be considered a writer and be there for the Lord and for the glory and the money. You have to also be able to manage your own expectations and about what it's to work with a publisher. Maybe sometimes when you're super new, you don't know what to expect. And of course, again, as Maribeth said, asking questions, even if they are dumb, they seem dumb, but it's better to ask them. And if you do it in a respectful way, nobody can, look down on you. Especially if you're new, it's just maybe normal that you ask those questions. Don't be afraid to ask those questions, and then try to manage your own expectations. What do you want? What kind of company, in the sense of what kind of relationship you want to have? Is it? I've seen people that hate very in-depth editing and I've seen people who are eager to have that. So it is difficult sometimes to navigate to, maybe we can talk about that also, but more intrusive versus a less intrusive kind of editing. This is also we have to think about that, because I've seen things you wouldn't believe in terms of people screaming like, oh, why they touch my my wording, and oh, I am good and this is good, and or people being very defensive. And I've seen all. And as I said to everybody that I work with, my job, it's not anything related to me personally. It's to make you shine and in your work shine. So I'm gonna do everything I can to help you achieve that at the as best as I can. But also some people have maybe expectations that are not very realistic towards what you can do. Like, for example, as a small publisher, you can't put a copy of a book in all the main big surfaces who sells books, maybe not in the beginning at least. So you have to also give space for the publisher to do their job in the same way. If there is enough communication, that will be something that will come organically. But that's why it's so important to communicate, because if you don't know what's going on, again, the distress will grow, and things that are not nice will happen, right? So, yeah.
Yeah, and I think it does go back to what we said about expectations. And again, the whole researching aspect of this. If you're signed with a small press and you want to see how their book releases do, look it up. If any small press is worth its weight these days, they're going to be blasting their releases on every social media website they can possibly find. And if they're not, their authors should be. And so you can just get a feeling for, if you're researching a small press, you want to see how their releases do, you should be able to go through, their feeds and see what they've done for themselves and their authors to get the word out there. Search, bring up Amazon, any website that with these books would be, look and see what's there, look and see how they're doing. I mean, I don't want to say everything is based on ranking on an Amazon, but just see how the books do, how the books look, read a sample if you can, just to see what they're offering the public, after they sign their authors. And again, it does go back to expectations. Like, how much is the house going to do for you versus how much are you going to have to do for yourself? And I think every author should understand that marketing does not stop with the publisher. You have to market. As a debut, when I debuted, that was one of the biggest things for me. Like, I was like, oh, wow, I have to continue to work. Like I said, the querying process, I believe, is one of the easiest ones ever, because then the work is afterwards. Marketing is hard, and it is effort, and it is work. And depending on who you sign and what they promise, you know, is also going to depend on how much more work you need to do for yourself as well. And it also goes back to what Cristina said about expectations in the editing process as well. You know, they signed you for a reason. And it is hard for an author sometimes to take criticism. I mean, I was one of those to begin with. But you have to step back and realize that I mean, you have to step back and realize that they did sign your story for a reason. They do want to promote your story for a reason. And now let them help you make it better. And there's nothing wrong with that. Nothing is perfect, ever. Even when you can go through rounds and rounds of edits and nothing is perfect, and you can make it the best it can be. And as an author, publishers aren't there to bring you down. Agents aren't there to bring you down. You know, they're there to help you, like you said, shine. You know, and so, you know, if you're the publisher and you feel like their editing process is too much or too little, you know, talk to them about it. I mean, like I said, it really does all go back to that communication and that open line of communication versus expectations and what you're actually going to get.
And a big clue, if I might add, is the attention to covers. Very important, because the cover is the package. It's the first thing that's out there. It has to make an impression. It could be super simple. It doesn't have to be made out of, you know, gold or anything. All I'm saying is, like, if the publisher understands how important is the cover to present your narrative proposal, that's a good publisher. And I'm sure that they will work with you and they will take your input, and you will come up with a lot of ideas. Some will be doable, some not, but it would be even a delight to talk about, to exchange on those things. But I think covers are super, super important. In Supersonic, in the magazine that I edit, one of the things we really pay a lot of attention to the cover, and our covers are very colorful, and every time, every issue, they're from a different person. We are extremely hard on the, we always want male illustrator, female illustrator, male illustrator. We want to have, you know, equal number of female and male illustrators. Is something just we work in a lot. We think it's a political statement just there, and we want them to be super different. But this is a magazine, so it's a different. The content is different all the time. Maybe in a publisher, you have to have, you are part of a collection, or you are part of a soup imprint or whatever. So you have to have certain. You know, the cover has to have certain features, so it's not completely new. You have to follow certain rules. Well, that's what I'm saying of design. But still, you can sense if they are paying attention to how to present your work, or if they just go really quick and give you something to go. This is something very important, I think, and it also can give you an idea of how they're going to treat the rest of your work.
Sorry, whoever said, like, you know, don't judge a book by its cover clearly didn't work in the publishing small press industry, because, and I think, especially for myself too, if you're looking at a small press, I mean, the first thing you do is scroll through their books and see what their covers look like. And just like Cristina said, it is a representative of how they're presenting their work to you. And you want to make sure that gets just as much effort as anything that's going to be inside.
And we are in a very audiovisual world. This is our generation. Maybe that wasn't the case, you know, 50 years ago. But in our times, We are the MTV Kid children, well, or whatever it is. I'm not sure if there was MTV yet or what. But my time there was MTV, and there was the video clips and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So now it's memes and TikTok and stuff like that. So it's part of our culture, and it's we something that we're very sensitive towards. And I think it's important. So whoever, if somebody tells you, oh no, this is not important, we will, we'll do whatever, that is not, that's an indication that they're not taking very good care of your overall proposal. I think that it's a package, it's everything. It's not just the words, it's the way you presented it, it's the way you sell it too. So there's multiple things that have to come into place, and all of them are equally important.
So Cristina, touching on that and what you were talking about earlier about the pandemic, right? Our world has changed a lot in the past year. So for newer writers, or for people who are switching agents or looking for small press publishers, I guess, what are some new challenges that have come into the industry with that change over the past year? And also, what are some opportunities that might have arisen from that change?
I think, to me at least, we just realized that there's a possibility to use the tools we have, the access to communication channels that we have through the internet, to bring people together, and people from different time zones and from different continents and from different cultures. So this opened up a lot of opportunities, at least for me, and make me realize that what I thought it was my weakness, which was not being present in the market that I was, that was my objective back home. I realized that because I live abroad and I speak English and I can communicate in French and in other languages, I can serve as a hub for people to contact each other, and I can put people in contact, and I can be in many different venues and events. Today we are here talking, but I have another session in two hours with my country in Spain to talk about a certain author. So as you see, this was a year ago or over a year ago, it was not going to happen. You had to be physically present. But now we know that we can collaborate in a different way. Maybe I like to think about, there is two realities overlapping each other: the reality that we can touch and blah blah blah, and the reality that is through our screens. And more than ever, we are part of this cyberpunk kind of reality. It doesn't have to be something negative, because we always, even in science fiction, we've many times thought about the negative consequences of all those, the isolation, and of course it takes a toll on you, etc., etc. But there are good things also coming out of it. I could have not been, for example, here right now if it wouldn't be for maybe COVID and the opportunities that present itself. So I think that I wouldn't say that from every bad thing comes an opportunity, but sometimes what you think it's a weakness, it could become your strength, and you can try to find ways to instrumentalize what you thought it was a step back, and think, well, maybe back home I am not having the recognition I would like to, but I can go to other markets because I speak the language, and I'm making connections, and there are people that are interested in what I'm doing, or I am interested in what they're doing, and I can help them. I don't think people really pay enough attention to the collaboration and the helping. And as you know, I've been talking about collaboration a lot, because I really truly think this is something that could be very positive towards the future. That sense that, okay, we are in a market, in a capitalist market and everything, but we can collaborate and we can help each other, and we can find synergies to capitalize on each other's knowledge and resources in a positive way and in a good way, not taking advantage, but adding. And I think I'm very confident. I think that we can, we can do great things, and good and positive things can come up out of it. I want to be, or maybe I chose to be optimistic, but seriously, right now, I have more work than I ever had before. So it's a good thing, I guess, for me at least.
I mean, I definitely do agree. I've been on more panels in the last year than I have before the pandemic. But at the same time, like at least me personally, I miss that in-person experience. I miss, getting in a car, hopping on a plane, going to a convention, and having that interaction. I would love to get it again someday. Don't get me wrong, but it has to be safe and we have to get there safely. But it is different. But at the same time, I'm one of those people who I personally clam up when I talk to somebody face to face. But for some reason, a Zoom call, I'm fine. So it's a different, because I think I'm comfortable in my own atmosphere and the anxiety levels are a little bit more toned down. But yeah, I mean, I can definitely see both sides of it. The pandemic has changed the industry. I think it is actually a time for indies to shine. Because this is kind of where they're at. They're more of the digital world as opposed to the agents and the brick and mortars and stuff like that. And, because of the pandemic, I also think more people started writing. And so I think it's going to now open up a whole world of opportunity for new writers to see what is out there that they never would have considered before had, we not been forced to stay inside. But yeah, no, I definitely, I do appreciate the, how our world has suddenly gotten smaller, and the fact that more people can now come together, communicate, have panels from halfway across the world with each other. It's great. And it's been there the whole time, but I don't think we realized how available it was until we had to.
And I just wanted to mention, there was a study made in my country, in Spain, where they find out that during the pandemic, the amount of time dedicated to reading raised up like 28% or something like that. So as you said, Maribeth, yeah, yes, more people are maybe writing, but also more people are reading or spending more time reading. Right. And this is a good thing. It's a good thing. So we watch TV series, but also we spend a lot of time reading, and especially for the new generations, I think it's important to stress that because literacy was kind of going down, or at least my perception is that it was going down because everything was so audiovisual that people, like I think in my own kids, they prefer to watch a YouTube video than to read something. And so, but this confinement forced many people to maybe focus on their studies and read more, or find other ways to entertain themselves. So it's not ideal, I understand, but it was kind of good in a way for certain things, even though, as Maybeth said, it's better to the human touch and to talk to people face to face is always better than not to. But yeah, sometimes good things come out of these horrible situations.
Yeah, thank you both for that perspective, and just for all your advice and those red flags to avoid, and but just the sense that we need to collaborate and we need to advocate for ourselves and for what we want as writers moving into this industry. I really appreciate all of that perspective, and thank you both so much for agreeing to be on this panel.
Absolutely.
Thank you. I appreciate especially learning so much from Maribeth and her insights. It was wonderful.
Yeah, it was definitely great to talk to both of you, and it just goes to show that we're here in the United States, but internationally, everything is just different, and we just, like you said, we need to open our eyes to that a little bit more and realize that everyone has their own experiences and every situation is different, and we need to be, like you said, our own advocates for that as well.